Peppa Pig is certainly among the most famous children's cartoons of all time. But have you ever noticed that there are certain things in the series that have no answer or make absolutely no sense? How many eyes does Peppa have? For instance, throughout its more than 300 episodes released over the past 20 years, in none of them could we ever see any of the characters facing straight towards us. Absolutely in all of Peppa's drawings, her characters are seen sideways, regardless of whether they are animals or humans. We only see them in profile. And even seeing them all sideways, we always see their two eyes, which raises the suspicion that if we were to look at the characters from the front, would they have 4 eyes? In fact, surprisingly, the only characters to which this premise does not apply are the vegetables, such as Mr. Potato, who is seen practically facing us, just like the other vegetables. But between you and me, seeing talking vegetables is even stranger than seeing animals. So if they had 4 eyes, it would certainly be even scarier. This is just the first unanswered question of something that makes no sense about Peppa Pig. Eating potatoes? Since we talked about the talking vegetables in Peppa Pig, which are a big mystery, let's talk about the episode Mr. Potato Comes to Town, which is surely one of the funniest episodes of all. In it, we start by seeing the pig family watching the program of the talking vegetable, and there, he already says that everyone should do physical exercises, which is correct, but they also should eat vegetables. But what are potatoes? That's right, they are vegetables. In fact, more than that, potatoes are the most consumed vegetable worldwide. Exactly because of that, when Mr. Potato starts making a list of which vegetables should be consumed, the children innocently ask if they should eat potatoes, and he is completely speechless. In fact, this shows us that Mr. Potato himself had never thought about it, which certainly raises many doubts about how the character was created and how he came to life. After all, he is just a vegetable, and so far, that's an unanswered question. How many talking vegetables are there? As if a talking potato weren't enough, we find out that there is actually another potato that also talks and walks around. But on top of all that, he has superpowers. We are talking about Super Potato, which, honestly, I thought was just Mr. Potato wearing a cape and red underpants, but later, when I saw them together, I realized that they are different characters. Besides these 2 giant vegetables, we can see in the episode of Mr. Potato's Christmas show that they are not the only ones. We can see that there are also Mrs. Carrot, Blueberry, and Sprout. They are all fruits and vegetables that have their own lives, arms, legs, and voices. So we already know that they won't make it to the list of fruits and vegetables that should serve as food for the children. The question is, where do these self-thinking vegetables come from? Some fan theories claim that they are the result of laboratory experiments done with common vegetables that gave them life. And in the case of Super Potato, also superpowers like flying. The question is, are they the only ones? Or are there others like Mr. Beat, for example? And if they are the result of some scientific experiment, who is behind these experiments? That's a question I want to know the answer to one day. As the mystery of the talking vegetables remains unsolved to this day, even after 20 years, let's comment #potato in reference to Mr. Potato and everything he does for children in the world of Peppa Pig. What do predators eat? Another unanswered question in Peppa Pig's cartoon that surely intrigues a lot is how do the animals that would be predators feed in this world of the pink little pig? We know of one, for example, in the episode where George gets sick, Dr. Bear. And, as we all know, bears are one of nature's biggest carnivores. In this case, a house full of cute and succulent little pigs would be quite an opportunity for him. But, of course, he is just a doctor and went to the pig family's house just to say what everyone already knew, that George was cold. Besides Dr. Bear, we see that Daddy Pig was responsible for designing a house where a family of wolves would live. And in this episode, we even had a quick reference to the story of the 3 little pigs, remembering that in it, the intention of the wolf was to eat the 3 little brothers for dinner. Besides these 2, we can't forget about the lion and the crocodile who work at the zoo in Peppa City. We noticed that among all, the only person who was frightened by these ferocious animals was Madame Gazelle. But about that, we have a theory that we will talk about better in the next unanswered question. The fact is that all these animals, which in normal environments would devour all these little children and their mommies and daddies, are civilized and don't do any of that. But they still have wild DNA somewhere, so the question is, why do they eat on a daily basis after all? Is it vegetables? But if they only eat vegetables and fruits, if they eat Mr. Potato or the blueberry, will they become carnivores again? Seriously, my brain is tired now. Madame Gazelle, a vampire? Remember that we just talked about how only the children's teacher was scared to see a lion and a crocodile as employees of the zoo. There is probably a good reason for this to have happened. Madame Gazelle is hundreds of years old. And since she has lived for centuries, she certainly remembers a distant past where animals hunted or were hunted, just like it is today. That's why the memory of lions and crocodiles is still in her head, unlike the children who were born and raised in a world where everyone lives in harmony. and the reason Madame Gazelle is so old is simply because she is probably a blood-sucking vampire. After all, that's what vampires do. This is clear from the fact that we don't see her reflection in the mirror in the Peppa Pig Halloween episode. And also when she says that bats remind her of her homeland, which probably must be Transylvania, Dracula's homeland and the birthplace of absolutely all vampires. But how did she end up in England and become a teacher of a class of young children? That's a mystery that we still don't know. Who knows? One day, right? Where do humans live? Besides talking animals, dancing vegetables, and celebrities, Peppa's world also has some humans. This is quite clear when we see a person playing Santa Claus in Mr. Potato's play. Another episode where we see a common person in Peppa's series is when we see a pirate passing right in front of the city's police station, at the moment when the policeman says he didn't understand why the pirates never came to them to get their money back. So, we conclude that there are at least 3 groups of beings in Peppa's world. Talking animals, also talking vegetables, and some humans too. But we rarely see them, so where do they really live? This is definitely one of the most intriguing questions in Peppa's cartoon. Quick reminder, if you really like cartoons like us, click the subscribe button right now. You will surely enjoy the next videos a lot. Houses on the hills. Another thing that many people wonder, which can be noticed in Peppa's series, is the fact that practically all the houses that we see throughout the episodes of the cartoon are located on top of hills. Even in the episode where Daddy Pig is designing a house, we see that he is already doing all his work thinking about building on the highest possible point, which certainly must be more work. The only house that doesn't exactly follow this pattern is Rebecca and Richard Rabbit's house. That's because, even though its entrance is also at the top of a hill, its structure is not above the ground, like in Peppa's house and other residents of her city, but rather below, which makes sense since rabbits usually live in burrows, like Rebecca's family. But apart from the isolated case of the rabbit family, all other places, such as Peppa's house and school, are in very high places. But why? In fact, there is no official answer, but many believe that this happens because the region where they live has many floods, which even allowed Grandpa Pig to go to the grandchildren's house using his boat, which would make a lot of sense, but it is still not an official answer from the series. But surely, if this is true, Grandpa Pig is the most prepared guy of all. What's in the barbecue? Finally, one of the most disturbing questions of all in Peppa Pig is directly related to the episode of the fire engine. In it, we see Daddy Pig and his soccer team meeting for barbecue. But if you look closely, you will notice that among the members of the group there is a zebra, a rabbit, and a pony, who are vegetarians. But besides that, the creepiest thing of all is that we also have Mr. Bull and Mr. Pig at this barbecue, and the two represent the 2 largest groups of meats used in barbecues worldwide, beef and pork. So, what kind of barbecue can a group of animals like this make after all? If you stop to think, whatever the answer, if it involves any kind of meat, it would be almost as disturbing as the Krabby Patty created by Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob, which is actually a crab too. Seriously, it's better we don't think too much about it because it can end up taking away all the charm of these cartoons that have been and are part of the childhood of many of us. I don't know about you, but these questions are really very complex and requires a lot for each of us to think about Peppa Pig. With a lot of affection, of course. And it's also with a lot of affection that we are leaving 2 incredible videos that are appearing on your screen right now. You just need to choose one of them and click. See you in the next video. Thanks.